Hello, welcome to Tech Guys YouTube channel. Here we teach everything related to technology, ranging from web design, web development, hacking, and a host of other things. In this video, I'm going to teach you the difference between let, var, and const, and how to differentiate and how to use them where it applies. If you want the full details of this video, you can follow the link on the description and read more about it in my blog. Now don't forget to subscribe, share and like this video. It will help me to create more content like this. If you are ready, let's roll. Welcome back. So I'm going to configure my terminal so I can be seeing everything right from the terminal. New terminal. By the way, if you want me to do something like this, you can comment on the YouTube on the comment section, so I will know what to do. If you want something like this. Now let's do nodemon app.js. Okay, it's running. Control S. Okay, now let's do var name. Let's call joy. Now let's console.log name. Console.log name. Let's see what it's going to give us. Now, if we do another var name again, it's going to reassign. Let's call this one Mary. Now the second one is Mary. See, the first one is Joy. It's going to reassign. Now if we change this to let, we are going to get an error. Sorry. Now Control S. We get an error because we cannot reassign let like this. The only way we can reassign it is to mutate it. How? We set let name equals to Joy. What we are going to do again is remove the let, say name. It's going to give us Mary. This will not give an error. Now let's check another one. Let's check for const. Maybe const hobby. Probably your hobby or my hobby. Let's say the const is programming. You're a programmer. Okay. The second one is what reading. That is your hobby. The third one is maybe you like singing. Now if you console.log this hobby, console.log hobby, Control S, is going to give us programming, reading and singing. We cannot change const, but we can change the values. We cannot change the variable. We can change the values. Let's see. Now if you do something like this, okay, let me just leave this thing as it is so that you can differentiate. Let's just say hobby no change. Okay, now put customer like this. When I say, remember, let me change the values. Let me remove this program in here and put coding. Hobby, we check the index. This here is index 0, this one index 1, this one is index 2. Now let's change the value of index 1, index 0, sorry, index 0. We say let index 0 be coding. Let it be coding. Now if we console.log hobby again, it's going to change the value to coding. Let's see, are you seeing it? It's just said coding, reading and singing. This is the only way to change const. If I do something like this, let me wipe off this. I say const, cannot reassign it, maybe name equals to Collins. Now I will now come and do again const name. You cannot reassign const. Let's just say it's joy. Are you seeing we get an error? If we remove this const just like we did on var, remove this const just like we did on var and do the same thing, we are going to get an error. So that is the why in ES6 let and const was introduced, because of global pollution that var has. var has global pollution, so you only use let and const when you want to const where you want the values to be permanent, you don't want values to change, and let. But once you use var causes global pollution. Now let's check another scenario. Let me clean this thing. Let me teach you, let me show you what is global scope. We are going to talk about scope now, so you have more in depth knowledge of what I'm talking about. Now this is scope, but this first one, second one, for this called global scope. Global scope. Now when I say var a equals to 1, let b equals to 2, const c equals to 3. Now this is let's function, let's just call it test. This is a function called test. Now when I say var a equals to 4, let b equals to 5, const c equals to 6. Okay, now inside this function scope is called child scope. Here is called global scope. This one is called child scope. Let's console log inside the child scope. Console.log. I'm going to call it child scope. Child scope. Okay, so that you can differentiate it. We call it a comma b comma c. Now we are going to call the function. If we not call the function, it's not going to run. We are going to invoke the function by saying test. Now let's console log global scope. Console.log global scope A, comma B, comma C. Now say Control S. Okay, yeah, Control S. Let's see what it's going to give us. Now, inside the scope, it's going to give us yes, child scope. We're going to have 4. A is 4, B is 5, C is 6. Now, let's check outside the scope, child scope. We invoke the function here. Now, outside the child, which is global scope, A is 1, B is what? 2, and C is 3. This is child scope. Now let's check another thing, another scenario. This let and var and const create a new scope, whether in block scope or function scope, but var doesn't create a new scope outside the function scope. Once if it's in block scope, it doesn't create a new scope. Let me explain. Let's do something like this. Okay, let me clean here. And I said this is a block scope. It can be if scope. If true. Now if true, we're going to do, remember that block scope, there are if statement, a loop, or anything that is wrapped between a curly brace. That's called block scope. Block scope are, let me explain what I mean by block scope. It said that block scope, let's see, say block level scope, they are if statement, a loop, or anything that is wrapped in curly braces. That is called block scope. Now let me just fast forward. Let me be fast a little bit. var A equals to 4. Let B equals to what? 5. Const C, this is Javascript, equals to 6. Now I hope I'm correct. Const C, sorry, it should be const C. Now let's do console.log. Console, let's log it. .log inside the if scope. Let's see, let me explain what I mean. If scope, to show you that var doesn't create a new scope in if statement or block scope. Okay, I'm going to say comma A, comma B, comma C. Now we also console.log global scope, if scope, and global scope. Let's see what's going to happen. Control S. Where did I make a mistake? If true, var A, let B, const C. If true, var A equals to 5. I'm not seeing any error. Why is it showing me error? Let's run it. Okay, there's nothing like function. Let's remove this test. Sorry, we are not running any function here. This one is inside if scope. Now see what I'm saying? Inside the if block scope, which is if scope, we have A equals to 4, B equals to 5, C equals to just the same thing. Now outside this, where var has problem, doesn't create a scope inside if. Now outside, A, which is var, is now 4, but if it's let, it will be 1. But now because it's outside, this if, or it's called block level scope, they are if statement, a loop, or anything that is wrapped in curly braces, that is block level scope. Now because it's inside if, var is inside if, it's not going to create a new scope, it's going to create a scope. Now as we see that global scope is now, A is now 4, B is now what, 2, C is now what, 3, let and const can create a new scope, whether in function or block level scope. It creates a new scope, but var doesn't create a new scope inside the block level scope. It's only in function that it creates a new scope. I hope I'm being understood. If you have any question, you can ask me in the comment section. I will explain more. You can also go to the description. There is a link I post my blog, so you can read more about it with some screenshots. Now, this is the last thing I'm going to do. So, if you want to avoid global pollution, make sure you are using let and const. By the way, ES6 allows var and let was introduced in ES6 Plus to prevent this global pollution. Let and const was introduced in ES6 to prevent this global pollution that var has. Let me tell you another way you can change mutate const. Let me show you another way. So I'm going to clean this thing. Now let's say const s. You can call it anything you want to call it. S const s. It has something like 2, 4, 6. Now we now said function. I cannot spell function again. Function edit in place. Sorry. Or you can call it anything you want to call it. You can call it edit in place or anything you want to call it. It left for you. Now let me show you something else I used to do, but it left for use strict. This catches common coding mistakes that you can encounter in your program, in your code. If you want to prevent common coding mistake, you can use this use strict. If I remove it, nothing happens, but it helps us to prevent mistakes. Now catch common coding mistakes. Now let's mutate this one. This is index 0. So let's say index 0. This on index 0. Let's assign it 1, as we have done this thing previously, but this one is inside function. Now index 1. This is index 1, number 4. Let's call it 3. You can call it anything you want to call it. This s again. This one is the last one is index 2. Let's call it 5. This is an expression, so it should end with this. Now let's invoke the function and see what it gives us. Edit. Sorry, what's wrong with me? Edit in place. Now we are going to invoke the function. And I say console.log s. This will give us. It gives us 1, 3, and 5. 1, 3, and 5. That means it has changed this number 2. It assigned 1 to this index 0. Assign 3 to index 1. Assign 5 to index this by mutating this thing. This is the way you can change code. Let me show you another thing. One last thing. And after this, I'll sign off. We are going to use something called object.freeze. Object.freeze is where you have an object and you don't want any of the properties of the object to change. When you use the const keyword, we use object.freeze. When you have an object, you don't want to change it, we use object.freeze. Let me explain. This function freeze. Let's just say freeze. I hope I may not be correct in spellings, but just pay attention to the function name. I can also say use strict here, but let's leave it. Const math constant. Let's call this one math underscore constants. Some people use once they like free code when once they use const, they will make the variable capitalize everything. Some don't do like that, so I will show you. Me, sometimes I use capital, sometimes I will not use capital. Now let's do pi. This is an object. When you do something like this curly braces is an object. Why okay, let's say pi capital letter. I need capital letter. Pi. Let's assign pi to what? 3.14. 3.14. And I'll say, sorry, this seems to not be here. What is wrong with my keyboard now? What's wrong with my keyboard? Okay. I say objects. You can Google more about this in objects. The freeze. Let's freeze this because we don't want the value to change. That's what we want to freeze it. Math constants. Let's freeze it. We are going to see some what's going to give us. Now we are going to use something like try and catch block. You must have something like this. If you have not had it, just follow me. This try and catch block. Okay, catch. We are going to catch the exception. Now in this try, let's give math constants dot pi. Math constants dot pi. Let's look at what we want to say. Math constant dot pi. We want to change it to what? This is an object. Change it to 99. Let's catch the exception. Now we catch the error. Let's see what the error gives us. Try and catch block. Now we say console.log the error or the exception error. What do you want to call it? Exception. Once you do it, you are going to return this math constant. Return math constants. Return math constants dot pi. Now if you come outside, we now say const pi let's invoke this function. Are you with me? Const pi. You want to invoke this which function? This freeze object function. Now say console.log pi. Let's see what give us. You give us 3.14. 3.14. If you remove okay, let me see what's the session. Okay. 3.14. Control Z, try math objects. Okay, objects. That's not an error I'm looking for. Object dot freeze math constants. How about I get this spelling? You should give me an error here. Math constants. Okay, function freeze object. Now use strict. Even if you put use strict here, use strict. Let me see. problem here. Okay, this strict should be here. Okay, sorry, should be here. Yeah, so that's where the use strict comes to play. Now, if you don't want to change the properties of a constant, like here we have const math constants. Also, we are standing for 12 auto pi. Now say object of freeze this math constant. Now do try and carry block math constant dot pi. We are setting the object of this 3.14, which is math constant dot pi. It's giving us we are assigning it to 99. We catch the error, return the math constants, because once you declare, must return. Now say constants pi freeze object. We not console log the pi. So it's giving us this kind of error. But if I remove this object of freeze, if I remove it, it's going to give me 99. I seen it. But if I put this object of freeze, it's going to give me an error. Cannot assign to read only property pi of an object. It cannot assign because of this error of freeze. I'm freezing objects. So this is why ES6 let and const is very, very important. And this strict, if you want to catch common coding mistakes, this is why you should use strict, as we have said before. Thanks you for watching. If you have any question, tell me in the comment section and I'll be glad to reply to you. Bye.